Hey everybody, Jeff Manchester here. In today's video, we're going to be looking at two brand new plugins from the people at Kush Audio, namely UBK. And we have the Omega Transformer Model A and the Omega Transformer Model N. I'm thinking N for Neve and A for API. That's just me. The knobs certainly look like they came off, they were modeled off those machines. If we go to the website here, we'll see that these two plugins are, this is the Kush website, houseofkush.com. These are coming on the heels of the 500 series Omega analog mic pre, this right here. And they can be used, I guess, in concert with this preamp, or they can be used on their own, and that's certainly what we're going to be exploring today. Them on their own on certain audio events within Ableton Live. And they look to me like mic pre's. Now, they're called transformers. I'm assuming that's because they transform the sound, but it could be because they're modeled after the transformer component within mic pre's. Transformers just, they regulate voltage. They also do some fun phase cancellation stuff with common mode rejection. They're placed often at the input, sometimes at the output stages of the mic pre's, and they just, good transformers will color the sound. There are some mic pre's that are transformer-less, and those are said to be sort of more accurate and transparent. And there are other transformers which are more than meets the eye and will morph into robots. I'm not sure where this one stands specifically, but I'm guessing these are mic pre's. These are little preamps, an API preamp and a Neve preamp. We have a 20 dB pad, we have a phase switch, and we have an intensity knob, and one knob does the job. I've also opened up a Fabfilter Pro-Q too, and the reason I've done this is because for people who haven't been listening to audio for 10,000 hours, they might not be able to sort of hear the subtle differences when you just instantiate a plugin. And I'm not talking about when you turn it on and crank the intensity knob up. A good preamp will sort of bring color and character to the sound just by virtue of it being on and the audio running through the circuitry, the transformers, the other components, all that stuff. So I want to make sure that that's visually represented to you guys here on the graph, and we can enable that using a cool little function called the freeze function here, which takes a snapshot of the audio over time on the graph, and then we can instantiate the plugin, and we can see the very subtle differences that both these preamps are having on the frequency spectrum. So let's pass some audio through it. We're going to start with the Omega Model N, which I have to admit I'm more partial to. This is the Neve one. There it is. We see the graph lighting up. Let's enable the freeze function. So it's taking a snapshot. And once things sort of settle down, I'm going to turn it on and keep an eye on the graph here to see some of the changes being made. Alright, so let's turn it on in 3, 2, 1. So you're seeing some action here at 1K, 700. Definitely the upper mids, the highs are coming up, a little bit of bump on the low end. So now that we have that, let's turn the intensity up. There, our lights come on. We're seeing some action. Everything's climbing, the track is just waking up. Let's turn the freeze function off. And let's A-B that. So we have it now at about 65% intensity. Let's A-B that. So now it's off. Kind of miss it when it goes away. And on. Okay, so if we turn this up any more, we'll probably run into some distortion. There it is. So let's A-B that. Off. And on. Let's back that off, maybe 65% or so. Or 60. Off. And on. So warmth, even order harmonics, good stuff. Let's turn the API on. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get a snapshot of the sound. I'm going to open this up here. So it's off. Going to get a readout. And you can hear and hopefully see the subtle differences between this, the Model A, and the Model N. So once the graph sort of slows down, we're going to turn it on. And let's turn it on in 3, 2, 1. So again, things are kind of waking up around the lows and the mids. Let's turn up the intensity. Green lights come on right away. And this is very indicative. You're hearing an opening up of the mids and the highs. This is what APIs are sort of known to do. They add some openness and airiness to the upper region of the frequency spectrum. And Neeves are known to add a bit more sort of warmth and tone and glue to this whole body of sound. So if that's what they're going for, they certainly nailed it. Let's keep going. If we keep pushing this, I think we run into distortion a little earlier with the Model A than the Model N. Yeah, running into distortion. Let's A-B that. So here's with it off. And here's with it on. And if you find you're running into distortion a little early with the A, just enable the pad, and then you can push a little bit further. That sounds really nice. That's 65%. Let's A-B that. So now it's off. Take the freeze function off. And on. Okay, now we've heard what these plugins can do on one element of a beat. Let's turn the whole beat on and then have a listen to these plugins on the entirety of the audio event. So everything's off. I'm doing the Model N in this time. Just add some sort of gooiness and warmth. So let's turn it on. Right away we're hearing a difference, and that's very indicative of a good preamp. Turn up the intensity. So it's catching a lot more audio, so the lights are turning on much earlier. I think it's really nice right there at about 46% of intensity. Let's A-B that. And off. And on. So it's almost adding a sort of glue-like compression. And off. And on. Okay, let's try the Model A. Let's see what happens with that one. Just gonna get it ready here. Turn this down. I'm gonna keep my pad on. That's what she said. And turn the intensity up. I should turn it on first. There we go. Right at about 60%. And let's A-B that. That's off. And on. One thing you can do is use these guys in concert, right? If you have a lot of mic pre's and you have a patch bay, use different colors and just test them out. And it's adding colors to your mix. So you're not necessarily EQing or scooping or compressing or whatever. You're adding tones with your preamps. And we can do that here with the Model A and the Model N. And possibly if they come out with more versions, if these do very well, we might see stuff like a Focusrite version or maybe an SSL. So that'd be kind of cool. So let's use the N and the A together and add some warmth with the N and some openness in the highs with the A. That sounds cool. And let's turn them off. In 3, 2, 1. That's off. And obviously the sound would be different if we had the Omega A before the N. Right now we have the N before the A. It would definitely change the sound if we switch those two things around. Now let's move on to something else. Let's move on to a vocal. And what I've done here is I have the same thing. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to get rid of that channel. Turn the vocal on. I have the N and the A both just hanging out here ready to go. I've instantiated the plugins on this particular vocal. It's not a very common vocal for video tutorials. Tutorials often choose like, you know, sort of a singer in a studio with no reverb or anything. I wanted to be in honor of UBK and Kush with plugins powered by THC, which means transient harmonic coupling. What did you think it meant? I wanted to be faithful to a company called Kush and go with a very trippy, weird sort of vocal. So let's have a listen to it on its own. Sounds like a keeper, huh? So let's turn the Model N on, and let's add some intensity. Everything coming alive again. You've seen what it looks like on the graph, so we're not going to include the graph. We're just going to use our ears to detect these differences. And let's A-B it. So this is off and on. Now, let's hear it with the entirety of the beat. By the way, a tip for you guys when you're mixing, it's often, kind of deceptive to be EQing and manipulating things in solo, because imagine you're taking a group photo of a bunch of people. You're not going to have one person come in at a time and you say, okay, now you bend down a little bit. There you go. Now stand up. You're going to want everyone in the picture, and then you can start directing people. So the same thing is true of mixing. You want to sort of maybe do your EQ moves and all that stuff. Do your cuts in solo perhaps, and then do the rest of your compression and harmonic distortion, all the rest of it once everything else is playing. So let's hear the rest of the beat here. Turn it off. So now that we hear the whole beat, let's bring the N in again. Take it down and bring it in. That sounds great. And here's off. Kind of fades into the background a little bit, and on. Now if we solo that, you'll notice there's a lot of distortion, right? And that's what I'm talking about. If you were to do this in solo, you'd be like, oh, I don't want to use distortion. But if you are really cranking this Model N or any other effect that you have, and you're using it and you're hearing it within the context of the entire song, you'll notice that distortion actually sounds good. It helps whatever you're working on stand out, but also sit well within everything else, and that's really important. Let's try the API. Turn it down and turn it on. Right there's a sweet spot, about 55% intensity. So that really helps that vocal stand out and sit in the mix. Now, one more thing we can do is, like we did before with this first beat, bring the Omega Model N in and just have it on the master track, which is what I've done here. I've got it right here on my master, and let's turn it on and crank it up, and then A-B it a little bit. It off in 3, 2, 1. You really miss it when it goes away, eh? Bring it back. So warmth, punchiness, character, and off and on. And that's only on the master that we have a transformer on, and the vocal too. There is no other compression happening on any other aspects, any other audio events within that beat. They're all dry, as you can see. If I take them here, there's nothing here in Ableton going on. Okay, so that concludes this video. We have the Omega Transformer Model N and the Omega Transformer Model A, $29 a piece. I think that's super, super reasonable. You can get it here at House of Kush. UBK.com. You can also listen to their UBK Happy Fun Time Hour podcast. It's a weekly podcast. You ask a question, you win a plugin. I asked a question a while ago. I won a plugin. And if I can ask a question that stimulates these guys, friggin' anybody can. All right? Why don't we go out on this beat? Take it easy, guys.